She didn't see him walk in. Not at first. She was elbow-deep in suds, scrubbing at a pan that looked like it had survived a war. The overhead lights flickered with a weary hum, casting a dull yellow over the chipped tile floor and grease-streaked walls. Her back ached. Her hands, raw and cracked, trembled slightly with each motion. But she kept going. She always did. He was already sitting when he saw her, through the little kitchen cutout, just a sliver of her profile. That familiar curve of the jaw. That quiet, resolute posture. The way she tied her apron double knot, slightly crooked. His heart slammed against his chest like it was trying to get out. It had been 18 years. And she was still here, except here, wasn't what he'd imagined. The diner was the kind of place you passed on the highway and never thought about again. Rusted sign. Torn menus. Booths with duct tape holding the seams together. He hadn't planned to stop. He was on his way to a meeting. His driver had suggested a break. A bathroom. A coffee. 5 minutes. But when he saw her, Evelyn, everything else fell away. His fingers hovered over the leather-bound portfolio he always carried. Black. Sleek. Clean. Inside were contracts worth over $200 million waiting to be signed in Chicago that afternoon. But in that moment, none of it mattered. The empire, the titles, the Forbes features. The youngest self-made billionaire garbage they plastered across headlines like it was magic and not trauma. He remembered her voice before he remembered her name. Don't let them make you forget who you are, baby. Not even for a minute. Evelyn Harper. His nanny. His mother, really because his actual one had preferred boardrooms to bedtime stories. He was 9 the last time he saw Evelyn. She'd packed her things quietly one morning while he was at school. No goodbye. No letter. Just gone. He'd asked his father what happened. She broke the rules, was all the man said. No explanation. No warmth. Just that familiar, clinical detachment his parents had mastered like an art form. He'd asked again, and was grounded for a week. Over time, he learned not to ask questions. But he never stopped wondering. And now, here she was standing over a sink in a roadside diner that looked like it hadn't seen a health inspector since the 90s. She turned slightly, and the sight of her face stole the air from his lungs. The same eyes. Tired now. Hollowed by years that hadn't been kind. But still, Evelyn. He stood, slowly, unsure of whether to approach her like an old friend or a ghost. She noticed him just as he reached the counter. Her body stilled. A rag clutched in one hand, a wet plate in the other. For a second, she just stared. Confused. Then cautious. Tyler, she said, her voice cracking over the name like it didn't belong to anyone real. He nodded. Swallowed. Tried to smile, but it collapsed halfway. My God, she whispered. Look at you. He didn't know what to say. No script had prepared him for this. For finding the woman who once wiped his tears now wiping mustard off plates for minimum wage. You work here? He asked, instantly regretting the words. She laughed, but it wasn't humor, it was rust and exhaustion. No, Tyler. I volunteer to scrub grease off grills for fun. He winced. Sorry. I didn't know where you'd gone. No one told me. Because no one wanted you to know. Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. The manager, a hunched man in a sweat-stained shirt, poked his head in and barked, Ev, orders piling up. She didn't break eye contact. Give me 5. Make it 2. Tyler turned toward him, something dangerous flickering behind his eyes. Give her 10. Oh. The manager scoffed until he met Tyler's gaze. There was something about billionaires, a calm so absolute, it made other people shut up and back down, even when they didn't know why. The man disappeared. Evelyn pulled her apron off, wringing it between her hands. You shouldn't be here. I didn't plan to be. She studied him. But you stopped. I saw you. She sat across from him in a booth that smelled faintly of syrup and burned coffee. He ordered nothing, just watched her, unsure how to bridge a gap, almost 2 decades wide. What happened to you? He finally asked. Her smile was bitter. Life? What happened to you? Everything. Too fast. Too big. Too loud. He told her about the empire. The pressure. The way people bowed when they saw him but rolled their eyes when they turned. He told her how empty it all felt sometimes. How he missed something he couldn't name, a warmth, a softness, a memory of safety. You, he finally said. I missed you. She looked down. They didn't tell you, did they? Why I left. Number. They fired me. Said I'd gotten too close. That I was confusing you. Making you soft. Your father said boys didn't need hugs. They needed grit. That sounds like him. I didn't take the severance, she added quietly. They offered money to leave quietly. I didn't want it. I wanted to fight. But they threatened legal action. Said they'd ruin me. Tyler's fists clenched. His chest burned. Why didn't you find me? I tried. Wrote letters. Left messages. You were always gone. Or busy. Or protected. He closed his eyes. They made sure I never saw those. I figured. She reached for her glass of water. Her hands still trembled slightly, not with fear, but with years of carrying weight no one saw. You're not supposed to be washing dishes, he said. You're supposed to be, I don't know, teaching. Running something. You mattered. I still matter, she said, calm but firm. I didn't need a title to matter. He nodded slowly. But they took your future. She shrugged. I built a different one. Doesn't look like yours. But it's mine. He stared at her, the woman who once sang him lullabies now defending her dignity like it was a castle wall. He felt small. For all his wealth, he'd never repaid the person who gave him the strength to earn it. I want to help, he said suddenly. She raised an eyebrow. Help how? I can buy this place. Set you up somewhere better. A business. A non-profit. Anything. Name it. She shook her head. Don't do that. Why not? Because helping isn't handing someone a ladder from the top floor. It's walking back down and showing them how to build their own. He blinked. The words hit harder than any boardroom negotiation ever had. She leaned forward. You really want to help? Then don't throw money at me like a problem. Ask me what I care about. Ask me what I lost. He did. And what she said next unraveled everything he thought he knew. She looked down for a moment, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the laminated table. I lost my voice, she said quietly. Not my actual one. My sense of being heard. Tyler frowned. What do you mean? She exhaled. When I worked for your family, I felt like I mattered. Not because I was paid, but because you saw me. You listened. When you scraped your knee and didn't run to your mother, you ran to me. When you had nightmares, you called for me. I wasn't invisible. I was someone. He remembered. God, he remembered. Sitting in her lap, small and shaking. Her voice humming against his ear, calming the world. But once I was gone, she continued, no one asked what happened to me. No one cared where I went. I tried to work again. Other families. Other children. But the references were gone. Your parents made sure of that. A whisper here, a warning there. Doors closed before I could knock. Sex. They blacklisted you, he said through gritted teeth. She nodded. Eventually, I stopped trying. Took jobs where names didn't matter. Dishes. Laundry. Motel cleaning. The kind of work where no one asks too many questions. Tyler's jaw tensed. He wanted to scream. To go back in time, and throttle the people who destroyed her. His parents, their lawyer, the system. All of it. You were the only one who ever saw me, Tyler. That's what I missed most. The booth was quiet again. Outside, cars passed in a blur of indifference. The world kept moving, like it always did, unaware of the quiet tragedies happening just beyond its edges. Tyler leaned in. Then let me give you your voice back. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. How? He hesitated not because he didn't know, but because he was scared of doing it wrong. Scared of treating her like a project instead of a person. Tell me what matters to you now, he said. If the past hadn't happened, if no one had stood in your way, what would you have done? She blinked. I don't know. Yes, you do. Say it. Her lips parted. Then. I wanted to teach. Not just children people. Women like me. Who lost their chance and thought it was too late. He smiled. That's it, that's what we build. Her brow furrowed. Tyler, dreams don't pay rent. They do if we give them a foundation. Literally. A program. A center. Classes. Mentorship. We can build a space for people who've been forgotten and you run it. She started shaking her head. I don't have a degree. I haven't been in a classroom in years. You don't need credentials. You have experience. You have truth. That's rarer than any diploma. She looked at him long and hard, like she was trying to see through the boy she once knew and into the man he'd become. Why now? She asked. Because I'm tired of pretending money means I did something right. I didn't build Blackwell Enterprises. I inherited the bones and just polished the windows. But I never built anything that felt like me. Not until now. Evelyn's hands curled around her glass again. Her voice was low. If I say yes, we do it my way. He nodded without hesitation. No press. No photo ops. No speeches. And no pity. Only purpose, he replied. She stared at him for a beat longer, then finally quietly said, "Okay." Something in him cracked open at that. A boy's guilt finally exhaling. A man's purpose clicking into place. He left the diner that afternoon changed. And he didn't wait. The next morning, the calls began. Lawyers. Architects. Program directors. He didn't tell them who the center was for, only why it had to exist. Because there were too many Evelyns. Too many voices buried by systems and silence. Too many hearts turned invisible because of someone else's fear of their strength. He called it the Harper Initiative. When his board pushed back, citing profits, optics, dilution of brand equity, he silenced them with 2 words. "I'm done." He resigned as CEO that same week. Handed the empire to a partner he trusted. The media exploded. Tyler Blackwell steps down unexpectedly. Billionaire walks away from fortune. The headlines swirled like vultures. But Tyler didn't flinch. For once, he wasn't running toward power. He was running from it and into something real. He went back to the diner 3 weeks later. Evelyn was still there, but only for one last shift. She didn't say much when he handed her the folder. Just opened it, scanned the papers. Legal documents. Incorporation details. A modest but beautiful blueprint for a community center with her name on it. She looked up, voice barely above a whisper. "You really did it?" "No," he said. "We did." She opened her mouth to reply, but the manager burst in, face flushed. "You need to clock out if you're not working." Tyler turned slowly. His stare froze the man mid-step. "She doesn't work here anymore." The manager's mouth opened. Closed. Then he saw the logo on the folder Evelyn held. Harper Initiative, Restoring Purpose. Reclaiming Voices. And he understood. Tyler turned back to her. "Ready?" Evelyn smiled, setting the apron down for the last time. She didn't look back. The first day of construction was quiet. No ribbon cutting. No cameras. Just an empty lot and Evelyn standing in boots 2 sizes too big, watching workers mark the ground where something sacred would rise. She didn't say much. She never needed to. Tyler watched from a distance, arms folded, wind tugging at his coat. He didn't interrupt. Just let her take it in, the sound of drills, the scuff of dirt, the skeletal beginnings of a building that would carry her name. Weeks passed. Then months. Steel beams grew into walls. Drywall into hallways. What was once just a shell became a sanctuary. And slowly, Evelyn began to believe. Not in Tyler, she'd always believed in him. But in herself. She showed up every day, clipboard in hand, sleeves rolled up, making sure nothing was wasted, not time, not funds, not potential. She hired women from shelters, men from halfway houses, teens who aged out of the system with no one to call family. She didn't give them jobs. She gave them worth. And Tyler? He worked behind the scenes. Quietly. Funding scholarships. Setting up legal teams to expunge criminal records for those who'd been punished for being poor. He sold his stake in Blackwell Enterprises. Used the money to create microloans, rent assistance programs, trauma counseling. But all of it carried one name, hers. Harper's Hope. Not a brand. Not a charity. A war cry whispered through every hallway of the building. And yet, just when things seemed steady, the past came clawing. It started with a letter, mailed in a plain envelope. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper. Typewritten. "You should be careful whose name you're dragging into the spotlight. Not everyone stays clean." There was no signature. But Tyler recognized the tone. Grayson, his father's former lawyer. The same man who'd delivered Evelyn's severance and forged her signature on a $50,000 hush payment. Tyler's blood ran cold. He brought the letter to Evelyn. She read it once, folded it neatly, and placed it on the table. "I told you this would happen," she said softly. "I'm not scared," Tyler replied. "Then you're not thinking hard enough." But she didn't say stop. She didn't say quit. She just looked out the window of the modest office they shared, the one with second-hand furniture and coffee-stained walls, and said, "Let them come." The next attack was more public. A tabloid headline. Nanny turned nonprofit hero, or something to hide. They printed her old eviction records. Her arrest for trespassing at a shelter that denied her a bed. Her unemployment history. Fragments of a life designed to humiliate. What they didn't print. Why it happened. How a billion-dollar family had ghosted her into oblivion. How a forged document ensured no one would hire her again. How she'd survived anyway. Tyler was furious. He wanted lawsuits. Press conferences. Fire. But Evelyn said no. If we react, we feed it, she said. Let them exhaust their poison, I've already lived it. They're just catching up. She was right, but he didn't let it go. Instead, he dug deeper. Into the Blackwell archives, the sealed files, the off-books payments. And what he found made his stomach turn. His parents hadn't just blacklisted Evelyn. They'd paid Grayson to track her, to report on her movements. They were terrified that she knew too much. That she'd seen things. Heard things. Conversations not meant for the nanny's ears. And she had. Evelyn, it turned out, was the one who'd witnessed the early money laundering schemes the shell companies used to finance offshore deals. She'd seen Grayson deliver envelopes to politicians at the house. She'd overheard Richard Blackwell threaten to ruin a competitor's family if they didn't back off. She hadn't understood all of it back then. But now, looking back, she understood enough. They thought I was a liability, she said one evening, as Tyler showed her the documents. Because I paid attention. Which makes you dangerous now. No, she said, eyes steady. It makes me free. Because I'm not afraid of them anymore. But Grayson was. That's why he called Tyler 2 nights later. The call came through encrypted lines. A block number. But Tyler answered anyway. Walk away, the voice said, calm and cold. Or I go public with Evelyn's history. You know how quickly donors scatter. You underestimate me, Tyler replied. No, Tyler. I know you. And I know your shareholders. You can throw your wealth around all you want, but reputations bleed faster than balance sheets. Tyler let the silence linger. Then he said, do it. Grayson faltered. I'm not afraid of a scandal, Tyler continued. But you should be. Because if you go public, I go nuclear. Every offshore file. Every bribe. Every judge your firm bought a dinner for. You think I didn't make copies? More silence. Then a click. Call ended. The next morning, the tabloid printed a retraction. Small. Tucked in the back. But it was there. Due to factual inconsistencies, our previous article regarding Miss Harper has been withdrawn. No apology. Just retreat. But it was enough. The tide began to turn. And with it, something shifted inside Evelyn. She didn't smile often. But that week, she did. Quietly. Softly. Like something deep inside her had been returned. Not her past. Her power. Opening day arrived like sunrise after a long, sleepless night. There were no red carpets. No champagne flutes or branded step and repeats. Just a crowd. Mothers holding children. Men with weathered faces and nervous eyes. Teenagers in oversized hoodies, peeking through the doors like they weren't sure they belonged. And Evelyn standing in the middle of it all looked more herself than she had in 20 years. She wore no makeup, no designer suit. Just a deep green sweater, jeans, and the same silver chain Tyler remembered from his childhood, the one she used to kiss before bedtime, like it carried the strength of generations. A local volunteer wheeled in the first crate of donated books. Someone brought cupcakes. A single flower vendor down the street sent a bouquet. No one asked why. They just showed up. Because word spreads when someone builds something real. Tyler stayed back. He didn't want the spotlight. Not today. He leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, watching as Evelyn welcomed each person not with fanfare, but with presence. Come in, she said, again and again, with a warmth no camera could ever capture. This space is for you. In one room, Get Prep classes were being set up. In another, a counselor scribbled intake forms for single mothers. A community fridge was being stocked with fruits, milk, and eggs. No questions asked. Just take what you need. Harper's Hope was not a building. It was a heartbeat. And Evelyn? She wasn't just its founder. She was its proof of concept. Tyler watched as a girl no older than 16 asked Evelyn how to fill out a job application. He watched Evelyn kneel, eye level, and say, "It's okay not to know. We're here to learn together." That's when he knew. This wasn't about fixing what had been broken. It was about building what should have existed all along. But the final twist? It came not from the outside but from Evelyn herself. That evening, when the doors finally closed, and the last volunteer had gone home, she found Tyler in her office. He was assembling a corkboard for her wall, taping up photos from the opening smiling faces, hugs, tears. "You should hang that one," he said, holding up a picture of a young boy hugging Evelyn so tightly his arms barely reached around her waist. She smiled. Then, quietly, "There's something I need to tell you." Tyler looked up. Her face was calm. But there was a weight in her voice. Something long buried. "I wasn't just fired because of what I overheard," she said. "That's what I thought for years. But it was more than that. She reached into a drawer, pulled out a sealed envelope. Aged, yellowed at the edges. I found this among my things last month. I'd tucked it away so far back, I forgot it existed. Tyler took it, slid out the letter. Read the handwriting, elegant, precise. His mother's, Partinatus. Evelyn, we can't allow this arrangement to continue. Richard believes you've grown too close to Tyler. I'm beginning to see it too. He's attached. Unhealthily so. And frankly, I'm starting to believe you are, too. We are offering you a final month's pay, and expect your resignation by Friday. You'll understand this is what's best for him, for you, and for our family's interests. Celeste Blackwell. Tyler's throat tightened. You didn't resign, though. She nodded. I refused. That's when Grayson stepped in. Told me I could leave quietly or be painted as unstable. A danger. A thief. So I left. He looked at her, fire in his eyes. Because you loved me. I did, she said. Still do, you were the only real family I ever had. He didn't speak. Just walked over, pulled her into a hug so full of ache and memory, neither of them moved for a full minute. When they finally sat again, she reached into her bag and pulled out another envelope, this one thicker. What's that? My resignation, she said softly. Tyler froze. What? I'm stepping down. Not today. Not next month. But soon. Why? Because I built what I came to build. And now it's time for others to carry it forward. For people like that girl who walked in today, asking how to apply for her first job. This isn't mine to cling to. It belongs to all of them now. He swallowed hard. And you? I want peace. A porch. A garden. Maybe some quiet for once. He nodded, blinking fast. But before she left, she had one more thing to give. She pulled out a slip of paper. A name. A contact. What's this? A woman I met at the shelter years ago. She has 3 kids. Speaks 3 languages. No diploma. No job. But she held my hand once when I thought I wouldn't make it. She belongs here. She is Harper's Hope. Let her lead next. Tyler took the name, memorized it, and when Evelyn stepped out that night, the doors of Harper's Hope closed behind her, not as an ending, but as a passing of flame. A year later, the photo still hung in the hallway. It was framed in wood, simple and clean. No plaque. No title. Just a moment frozen in time. Evelyn, sitting on a folding chair, laughing, her eyes crinkling, a little girl braided her hair with ribbon. Visitors often paused at that photo, not knowing her story, only that it felt safe. That the woman in the picture had known hard things and survived them. Harper's Hope had grown faster than anyone expected. What began as a converted community center in a forgotten zip code had multiplied, now 3 locations across the state, with more on the way. Not franchises. Not chains. Fires. Each one led by someone who had once needed help, and now offered it. And Tyler? He never went back to the spotlight. He gave interviews, occasionally, but only when it helped raise funds for the initiative. He refused to be called philanthropist or visionary. Just someone making amends. He moved out of his penthouse. Sold the private jet. Bought a 3-bedroom Craftsman on a quiet street where the trees actually touched. Some called him crazy. But others, those who came through the doors of Harper's Hope, they called him something else. A man who listened. Not long after Evelyn stepped away, he visited her. Not at the center. Not with a camera crew. At her home. It was small. White fence. Worn porch swing. A vegetable garden in the back that exploded with tomatoes and stubborn basil. She wore gloves when she answered the door, dirt still clinging to her palms. Hope you don't mind, he said, holding a pie from the corner market. I came as a guest this time. She smiled. As long as you stay for tea. Amore. They sat in her backyard under the lemon tree. No talk of donors. No mention of press. Just birds, breeze, and shared silence. I've been thinking, Tyler said, sipping quietly, about what it means to have a legacy. Oh? I always thought it was about impact. Big gestures. Names on buildings. But I think I got it wrong. She looked at him, amused. Go on. I think real legacy is about correction. Fixing what our ancestors broke. Restoring what they took. Giving back what they stole, not because it earns forgiveness, but because it earns forward. Evelyn didn't answer right away. She just reached across the table, gently placed her hand on his. You figured it out, she said. Later that year, at the annual community celebration, the team unveiled a new addition, a quiet, sunlit library with large windows and no locked cases. On the inside of the door, carved into the wood in soft lettering, were only 2 lines. For the ones who were forgotten and the ones who never forgot. Harper, Blackwell. And maybe that was the twist no one saw coming. That the boy raised in cold marble halls, and the woman discarded in silence, would come together not to change the world, but to change the way the world saw people like her. One story at a time. One door at a time. And somewhere, even now, a girl who has been told she's nothing, walks into a building with Evelyn's name stitched into the walls, and learns that nothing is just another word for beginning. Because someone once said, strength isn't in your bank account. It's in your heart. And now, that heartbeat lives on. Forever.